Hi, my name's Sam Saggers, Director of Positive Real Estate. Today we're going to talk about some great information on the Australian property market. We're going to give you some tips and strategies, so get ready to take some good notes. And of course, come along to one of our property information nights where there's a lot more content and information that we can deliver for you. But most people want to know what's going on in the market. And there is a lot of doom and gloom sometimes out there in the press and in the media about the end of marketplaces, property values plummeting, all sorts of misinformation which really the media fuels into the economy. Because people make up the marketplace, don't they? And if we look at the market, it's very cyclical. Property markets last from anywhere from sort of 7 to 10 years. And during that time, there's all sorts of roadblocks along the way. There's world economic influences, external influences from government. Can we control any of that? Well, no, we can't, but we can make some really good decisions on where we should invest from an economic point of view. Of course, at the bottom of the market, this is also known as capitulation, all right? And at the bottom of any marketplace, it's a wonderful area to invest because the sentiment's low, things aren't great on the streets, so it becomes a bit of a buyer's marketplace. And for a lot of buyers in the market, that's where they want to buy. In fact, the best investors, the number one investors, invest in a capitulating marketplace. Marketplace will then go through some form of recovery. And there's plenty of markets in Australia today where there's a lot of recovery happening. In fact, property markets are starting to rise. Now, you'll probably read in the paper that there's property's gone backwards. Well, it's not necessarily true, and I'll explain that very, very soon for you. Rents are on the increase, the economy is doing fairly well. So there are some marketplaces which are very low in value, and if we knew where they were, we could actually invest in them and watch them rise. So the gold medal investors invest in a capitulating market. The silver medal investors invest in a recovering or rising market. For a lot of people who've never invested before, this is probably the best area for you to invest because a rising market is going to give you some capital growth. And capitulating market, or otherwise known as an opportunity market or the bottom of the market, the problem with it, you just don't know when you're going to leave the bottom of the market. So quite often you have to wait and wait until that market leaves. But you can get the best deals in the bottom of the market. And of course, the C-class investors, or the bronze medal, they buy at the top of the market, okay? And we don't want to be one of those investors. We want to be buying down at the bottom of the market. So by coming along to the information night, we always keep you up to date on the various marketplaces around Australia, which are really either at the bottom or rising in value. And depending upon your risk profile, we can help you get into those marketplaces. And of course, Australia is not one big market. It's made up of lots of markets. There's sentiment in markets all over the country, both primary and secondary markets. One other myth that often happens in Australia is the idea of values dropping in value. And so today there are properties that are being sold for less than market value all around the country. But a lot of these properties are over the $1 million mark. In fact, properties sitting around $10 million in many of the marketplaces around Australia today are being sold for $5 million. So you can get a 50% increase or decrease in value. Now, when the figures come out, that kind of skews the figures because do investors really shop in $5 million marketplaces? Not typically. The people I help tend to shop in that sort of anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 bracket. Okay? So if we look at the $200,000 bracket, and we get a 10% increase in value, okay, the new value of the property is $220,000. For most investors, a $20,000 gain over a 12-month period is a lot of money. Okay, it's a great amount of money, and particularly because we're investing at the affordable entry point. Okay, but a 50% loss on a $10 million property or a $5 million loss in the market means that we need a lot of smaller properties to make out the balance of the loss. Okay, so we might need, and I can't work out the maths right here in front of the camera, but we might need 50 of these properties for every loss in a high-end property, okay, before the market even finds balance from a capital growth point of view. So the low end of the market grows well, the top end of the market, it's a different property market. It's a lifestyle market. It's got really little to do with investing. Rents are on the rise, and for me, a telltale sign for a lot of people who get into the market, they need to understand that as the market sort of weaves and carries on over time, you can get into the market now at a pretty good rental return. Okay, let me ask you guys this: is a 6.5% rental return, 6.5% in a capital city, a normal return? What's the average return in Australia today? It sits at around 4.5%. So if you can buy a rental return of around 6.5% and still get an affordable rate, that is a fabulous opportunity. Not just because the deal might have great capital growth, but because there's a lot of pressure on rents in a lot of the capital cities. We're seeing rising rents. Okay, to put it in perspective, a property that was renting for $200 a week in 2007 is renting at $300 a week now, okay, in Sydney. Okay, so the rent increase has been over 40% over 5 years, and it's continuing to do so. So it's very legible to forecast that a 6.5% that you buy today will be a 7.5% return within 2 years. Within another 2 years of that, 4 years or 5 years into owning the property, your return will be at about 9%. And what does that mean? Well, that actually means you're going to have a neutrally geared or even a positive cash flow property. So just by holding on to property for a little bit of time, if you can get a good starting rent, it's a wonderful tip, a wonderful strategy, because you will turn your investment property positive cash flow as you hold on to the property. And for the most part, hopefully you'll make some capital growth as well. So guys, look, come along to one of our property information nights. They're held all around the country. We'd love to catch up with you in person, spend a little bit of time understanding your world. I hope to see you soon.